The Christmas Elf. The Purchase. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be on top of the world, on top of the Christmas tree, with everyone looking up at you? The view must be amazing, surrounded by twinkling lights and tinsel. Surely it's the most magical place to be. Angels and stars have monopolized that place far too long. It's time for a change. Time for elves to sit at the top of the tree. And I, a charming and energetic elf, want to take that place. It's where I deserve to be. I work hard, harder than anyone else. Yes, sirree, I am going to sit at the top of my tree. Elf was a wooden Christmas tree decoration. His tunic and tights were painted red and green. He wore a knitted pom-pom hat which sat above two prominent pointy ears, and in each hand he held a colourful present. Elf let out a deep sigh and glanced around. He was hanging on a display carousel in a lovely little boutique specialising in cards and gifts for people of all ages. The shop was decorated brightly for Christmas. Tinsel and holly boughs hung from the shelves. Twinkly lights weaved in and out of boxes wrapped in shiny paper with pretty bows, and the sweet aroma of mulled wine wafted from slow-burning tea lights. The shop was a festive feast, and an essential stop for all those last-minute purchases. Elf was in the Christmas decorations section, near the window. To his left there were sequin robins, and to his right, tiny giggly teddy bears wearing brightly coloured scarves and Santa hats. It was Christmas Eve. Christmas carols tingled quietly on the radio as red-faced shoppers considered what to buy. Depending on where the carousel stopped, Elf could see out of the window. He'd missed most of the morning activities, but had been watching the people scurrying back and forth that wintry afternoon. There were so many people. Occasionally they'd stop to chat, and when they did, their breath seemed to add to the thickening fog. Every time the shop door opened, the delicious smell of roasted chestnuts gushed in, and Elf would drink in his fill. But he was getting bored now. He wanted someone, no, the right person, to take him home so he could be the master of his own tree. Several shoppers had noticed him already, but he hadn't liked the look of them and pulled a face so they'd put him back. Most had opted for the sparkly snowman. Just as well, thought Elf, snowmen aren't picky. "What a sweet elf!" exclaimed a young girl with rosy cheeks and the biggest brown eyes Elf had ever seen. "This one has potential," he thought. "Look, Daddy," she said, "he's got smiley eyes and a cheeky grin, and he can jump." Molly, for that was the little girl's name, pulled at the string behind Elf, making his legs and arms swing up and down. "We should get him for the baby. He looks so funny." Molly had come shopping with her dad to get some new Christmas lights. She loved Christmas. The Christmas street lights, the brightly decorated shops, school nativities and presents. They hadn't planned on coming into this boutique. Their instructions were clear. Only Christmas lights. But Dad had relented. This was the best dressed shop in town, and it was only 2 minutes from the DIY shop. "Please, can we get him?" pleaded Molly, looking eagerly at her dad. "Look at the way he jumps," she explained, giving Elf another tug. Normally this would have annoyed Elf, but he liked Molly. She pulled gently on his string. Unlike the little boy who had come earlier and tried to prize his presents off, gifts should never be snatched. "Oh, go on then," Dad succumbed. "Hurry up, though, before the queue builds up again." "Oh, thank you," said Molly, as she rushed over to the checkout desk. Chapter 2. The Tree. In Molly's house, the Christmas tree always went up on Christmas Eve. It wasn't a real tree, but it was a pretty good interpretation, made of a metal frame with wires and tinsel branches. Molly's parents had bought it 10 years ago, before Molly's older brother Jack was born, and it was still going strong. Molly took great pride in thinking her family had saved 10 fir trees, a small but valuable dent in global warming. Dad's job was to put the tree together. It stood over 6 feet tall, with branches slotting in from the bottom up. Mum was usually responsible for the lights, but this year she had delegated that job to Dad, as she was very busy rushing around the recent new arrival. The newly bought multicoloured, multifunctional lights would look wonderful with the static starlights they already had. Jack had wasted no time untangling the string beads. He had been flicking the long chains across the wooden floor, making waves, much to the baby's delight. Molly had opened the Christmas decorations box and was carefully looking through the beautiful ornaments that had been collected over the years. She smiled as she examined each one in turn. It was like meeting an old friend after a long time. She remembered them all, but was delighted to reacquaint herself with them. Each one had a story, a memory. There was a bauble from Paris they had bought to mark the new millennium. There was a knitted snowman that Mum and Dad had bought when Molly was born, and a yellow wooden jumping teddy bought when Jack was born. There were angels, fairies, Santas, soldiers, and much more. "Oh, this one's lost its string," exclaimed Molly, holding up a jolly clown that seemed to smile back at her. "Don't worry," said Jack, who had come to join her. "I'll grab Mum's sewing box." He darted off and quickly returned with an old biscuit tin. The lid jumped open to reveal an array of threads, cottons, ribbons and strings. "Keep it on the table, you two," called Mum. "I don't want any pins on the floor." "Yes, Mum," Molly and Jack replied. Molly chose a gold-coloured thread to match the clown's outfit and carefully threaded it through the loop on the clown's head. "There you go," she said, "as good as new." It wasn't long before the tree was assembled, but without any decorations. It looked very plain. "Come on, you two," said Dad. "Lights next." It looked almost as if Dad, Jack and Molly were performing a slow sidestepping dance as they circled the tree and attached the lights to the outstretched branches. Tinsel and beads followed, then finally the baubles, ornaments and a star. Elf was the newest addition to the family. Molly hung him right at the front, as high as she could reach. "Look, Mum," called Molly when they were done. No, close your eyes," interrupted Jack as he scrambled to the plug socket. 3, 2, 1, "Look," he said as he switched on the Christmas lights. The tree looked lovely. True, all the decorations seemed to be hanging around the bottom third of the branches where Molly and Jack could reach, no doubt. The lights seemed to have accumulated to the left, near the TV, and the stars seemed to be hanging precariously to the right. But otherwise, yes, the tree did look beautiful. "Oh, my darlings, that looks wonderful," said Mum as she gave Jack and Molly a big hug and kiss. "Well done. It's perfect." "This is Elf," said Molly, leading Mum closer to the tree. "We bought him today for the baby." "Oh, he's perfect," replied Mum. "We haven't got any elves, and he certainly looks like a cheeky chappy. Just what we needed." Jack and Molly beamed with pride. "Come on, everyone," said Mum. "It's supper time, then early bed, because you know who is coming, and you know when." Mum tickled them into the dining room. Jack and Molly finally settled to sleep at 8:30, followed soon after by Mum and Dad, knowing that baby would be up for a feed soon enough. When all was quiet and dark, Dad slipped back downstairs carrying a large box wrapped in shiny paper. The room was dimly lit by the yellow street lights. Carefully he placed the box beside the tree and reached under the branches to connect the plug trailing from the box. As he moved away, he knocked Elf off his branch. "Honey, are you downstairs?" Mum called softly. "Coming," he replied in a whisper as he shoved Elf onto the nearest branch and hurried back off to bed. The room was quiet. All you could hear was the rumbling of the dishwasher in the kitchen. Chapter 3. Disgruntled. "Oh, this is a fine thing," said Elf to himself, huffing and puffing. Molly had hung him at the front of the tree. Granted, it wasn't the top, but he had a good view, with no obstructions, neither lights nor tinsel in his way. But now he was hanging near the bottom of the tree, facing the back wall. He couldn't see a thing. This was not what Elf had hoped for at all. How was the baby going to see him down here? How could anyone see him down here? He was meant to be at the top of the tree. No, this would not do. He had to do something. Elf figured that if he started swinging, he could jump off his branch onto a higher branch, then climb his way to the front. It couldn't be that difficult. He'd seen an acrobatic clown do it at the shop when it fell off its peg. Okay, the clown wasn't holding anything, unlike Elf, who had 2 presents, but Elf was just as athletic. If clown can do it, he thought, so can I. Unknown to Elf, a small knitted penguin decoration with a red and green hat started to watch. His beady eyes followed as Elf swung backwards and forwards, building up momentum. At his maximum swing, Elf leapt up with outstretched hands. He touched the branch he was aiming for, but he couldn't hold on. Elf fell to the ground. He landed with a bump onto something hard that clicked underneath him, switching on the fairy lights and more. The lid to the box, wrapped in shiny paper, flew open. It glowed as something white rapidly inflated out of it. As the white thing grew, it pushed against the tree, which started to lean over, as still it continued to grow. Suddenly, an arm pinged out from the huge white body, then another, striking the tree to the ground. The twinkly Christmas tree landed with a tinkly thud as a giant glowing inflatable snowman shouted, "Surprise everybody! Merry Christmas everyone!"